Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Raw Cloud. Today I want to talk about early abilities as a child. As a child, growing up in my neighborhood, I had friends, I had, a lot of family. I would have these dreams and of entities coming in and floating me out of my window. I couldn't see these entities at the time. I had to be around 6, 7 years old. And I would wake up and notice that I had strange markings on my arm, like needle marks. And when you're a child, you really don't pay attention too much to these things that are going on. You just assume that these are basically dreams that you're having, not knowing that these things are actually happening to you and you're being put back into your bed, and your mind being wiped. When I turned 9 years old, I got into martial arts. I was really, really into martial arts, and I became quite good at it. And as I studied martial arts, I knew that it would help me in the long run. My father was military, and for the longest time, I was battling, as a child, anger issues. Um, and all I wanted to do was, be around my father. But he was military and he was always gone. So it was just, mom and my brothers and sisters. And I had a few friends. I had a best friend. He was mixed. He was Indian. His mom was Indian. His dad was Mexican. Um, but to get back to the story, once I started studying martial arts, it became like my whole world, my whole life. Even at 9 years old, I began to stretch. I began to meditate. I would go to tournaments. I became really good in martial arts. But these martial arts abilities would open up these disciplines within the mind as far as meditation. And I noticed that I got really good at sensing energy around me. And it became fascinating that I could be in my room. I could be in my room not doing anything, and I can sense movement in the apartment next to mine. Not hearing a sound over there, but I can sense movement. I can sense energy. I can tell if someone came into a room or left a room. Also begin to get quite good at sensing energy. I could also sense whether there was an entity that came into the room as well. A lot of people would say, spirit, ghosts, whatever, whether it would be interdimensional beings or even a cloak being. At that time, as a kid, you don't understand these things are possible. So you just be fascinated at these abilities. That's what we would call them, abilities. And I found it very, very fascinating to have that type of ability, not knowing later on that other things will pick up on my ability to know that I can see them. I can see their energy. Shortly after I developed these skills, I would go through a series of sleep paralysis, not being able to move but see everything around in the room. And these will happen quite frequently. When my father retired out of the military, he was in church. He grew up, playing the piano in the choir. And I would tell my dad, Dad, I'm having these strange dreams. I would see, these demonic beings in my dream. And he would tell me, to armor yourself with the presence of Christ. Armor your body with the presence of Christ. And, everybody have their own unique way of praying. And, I took his, you know, as a way of, kind of protecting myself. And it took me on a journey as a kid of learning who I was and why I was having these demonic dreams, why they were coming to me. I remember this one dream, and I had to be about, I want to say maybe 10 years old. I was in the projects because I grew up in the projects. So I was dreaming that it was at nighttime and I was walking through my neighborhood and I can hear these dogs barking. I couldn't see them at first, but I sensed that they were looking for me. And so I didn't want them to catch up to me or find me. So I began to run. I ran through my neighborhood into another neighborhood. I had to have been running for like 10 minutes to get away from these dogs. And every step I took, it felt like I could hear them getting closer and closer. So I'm looking, where can I hide? I didn't know anybody in the other neighborhood. And I'm pretty sure no one would, even in this dream, would open up a door to give me safety. So I saw this tree and I was drawn to this tree. Like my soul, my whole being was drawn to this tree. And it stood strong. and it almost glue. It had a light glow to it. I don't know if I was drawn to it because of that, or was it just instinct? But whatever it was, I climbed up that tree. And shortly after I got as far as I could up the tree, I looked down and I saw these Doberman pinchers. And where their ears were, there were horns. And they was looking up at me barking. And it looked like they almost had a smile on their face as they were barking at me. And this demonic being just appeared out of nowhere right between these dogs. And it looked up at me and it pointed. And as soon as it pointed at me, this glow came out of the sky. It shot clear out of the sky. And this was nighttime. White light. And it wrapped around my entire body. And I felt like my body was being cleansed. Like I was being washed with this white light. It was almost like I was being bathed in it. Then I began to speak a tongue, speak a language. And I'm seeing my mouth move, speaking this language. But I don't understand what it was. I don't understand the language. It had to be ancient. And as I'm speaking this language, I'm looking down at these demonic beings. This one demonic creature looked like a demon. It dissipated along with the dogs. It was amazing. It was truly amazing. To this day, I can't really fully understand it. Maybe that was the Christ light. Maybe that was God's source. Maybe it was my star family. Maybe it was my spirit guides or angels. But whatever it was, I began as a child to awaken. I began to grow spiritually, not religiously, but spiritually as a child, 10 years old. I would still go through a series of sleep paralysis. As much as the dark was pulling on me, the light also had me. I was a good kid, but I also had my problems too. I had my problems. I liked to fight, and I was very disrespectful to my elders coming up. I think a lot of it had to do as a young kid not being able to spend time with my father. I think a lot of it did come from that, and I had a lot of anger issues. I think because of that. I had a best friend, and we would go around, looking to fight anybody. I was a young, dumb kid. a very disrespectful kid. And I would get in trouble, and then my mom would have to, you know, discipline me, because my father wasn't around. That was one point my mom, I was so bad and getting into trouble, my mom wanted to give me up. So this takes me into the next story. I don't know how much you guys understand higher selves and oversouls and higher consciousness. As a young kid, I had the ability as well to step outside my body. When I sleep, I go off to other dimensions, I go off to other timelines, I go off to other realities. But there's one particular time I went back because I had to learn something. As a kid, I was on a negative path, and that wasn't my contract here. The dark was pulling me. As a